episode of Matty Loves Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Matty Loves Podcast. A long overdue episode of Matty Loves Podcast, I should say. I'm your host, Matt Simone, down here in sunny Orlando, Florida, as we are approaching the holiday season, and much like last year, this holiday season has produced another Star Wars film. Last year there was a lot of hype around The Force Awakens Episode 7, and I have just gotten out of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, which for any of you that are living under a rock or have no idea what the Star Wars is, Rogue One is basically events that lead directly into Star Wars Episode 4. So with that said, I just want to take maybe about 20 minutes here to share my thoughts because they're fresh on my brain, and I really want to talk about it because this was a highly entertaining film. I thought it was an excellent holdover between the episode series, I guess you could say, the main canon, whatever you want to call it. And also, I feel that Episode 8 has their work cut out for them because this film is pretty damn good. Before I get into just, the fun aspects of it, I have to say, going back and looking at when they announced this film and they announced the plot, I personally thought about everything, and from the jump, I was like, okay, look, if any of the baby faces or the good guys, main characters, end up surviving this film, it will be a failure, because how could anybody survive this situation that most of us Star Wars fans know about, which is the rebels stealing the Death Star plans and giving them to Princess Leia Organa, who, then the episodes 4, 5, and 6 subsequently take off. A lot of people have said that this film is the best Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to disagree with that. I think that is just really, that's tough to do, just because, if you go since, maybe, but for me, just thinking about it, man, I love Return of the Jedi, I still think I would take Jedi over this film. And then this film, actually, now that I think about it, because this film, what it does is not only it lends itself to fan service, which I'll get to in a second, but it was also a risk doing this story, I think, mainly because of the fact that it wasn't an episode. This wasn't like Episode 8. And we're again kind of transitioning back in time a bit, similar to how the prequels, went back, and told the story of the rise of the Empire. And this right here is just a little window into where the Empire was heading into Episode 4. And they were pretty much getting ready to conquer the entire galaxy once and for all with the construction of the Death Star. And I thought that really getting into the basically the creator of the Death Star, last name Erso, first name, without looking it up, I have no notes. I don't have any notes in front of me right now. Jen Erso, the main character, her father, was responsible for developing, building the Death Star. And I guess now I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there that, I'm going to go ahead and probably pop off a few spoilers. Some I'll mean to say, and some I won't. So please forgive me. And I really don't suggest, listening to this podcast any further if you still haven't seen the movie. And I know I'm saying still haven't seen the movie, being that it is Friday. I'm guessing, hopefully I'm going to get this uploaded and into the internets by this afternoon. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So Urso's father basically is the character that writes all of the flaws that anybody had with Episode 4 in regards to how to destroy the Death Star. How could they miss the fact that the reactor core, once you brought the shields down outside of the Death Star, how could you not miss the fact that, the reactor core was the Achilles heel of the Death Star? Well, that's because it was done on purpose. Jen's father, who did not want to be a galactic terrorist, and was a good man at heart, but he really knew how to operate the crystals that they needed to mine in order to power the Death Star. It starts with a K. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Again, like I said, I don't have any notes in front of me. But the crystal, the same crystals that power the Death Star's giant like ion cannon or whatever, are also the same crystals that power lightsabers. And he is on the planet Jeddah, not Jedi, but Jeddah, at the beginning of the film, and we find out, that he is wanted by the Empire to come back and finish what he started, and he doesn't want to, and of course they force him into it. So he's like, okay, you're going to force me into doing this? Then I am going to put in a flaw, and not only that, but send out a message that hopefully my daughter, who, again, hopefully, is still alive, will get this message and, by some way of the Force, link up with the rebels and end up, stealing these plans. So that's pretty much just your initial, that's your jump off point. That's where you're like, okay, it's off to seek adventure. And if you know the story of Star Wars, you know that they do end up getting the plans because they later use them to destroy the Death Star in New Hope. A couple things, though, that really stood out to me with the film are the locations. The locales were beautiful. All the different places that we got to see. It wasn't that many. I think we had about maybe 4 total settings. But all of them were awesome, from the beaches of, I think the planet's called Scarlet, to even going back to Mustafar, which was a really nice callback as we first see Darth Vader in this film. And Vader, guys, look, you had to be an idiot to think that this guy was going to be in like half the movie. He's not, but with what little he is in the film, it's tremendous. And Star Wars fans are just gonna love it. It's Vader. When was the last time you saw Vader on screen? And when have you ever seen Vader totally just wreck shop? None of us really have seen Vader just annihilate people. And spoilers again, he does that indeed in this film. I thought that the cast was pretty good, but my problem was, because all the characters were expendable, to me, because I knew, I was like, like I said, there's no way that they all can survive. I don't know. I guess I just didn't invest a lot of emotion into these characters. I was a big fan of the Jedi Kung Fu Master and his best friend. Those were, and then of course there was the droid, played by or voiced by Alan Tudyk, KZR86 or whatever its name was. Very fun. The droid was sarcastic. Was definitely looking at everything with the glass half empty, and it was a nice touch to the flow of dialogue in the film. But like I said, I kind of viewed just the cast as sort of expendable. I thought that the actress that played Jane Erso did an excellent job. And as far as the character of Jen goes, she did what she needed to do at the right parts, and maybe some people might see her character at moments as cliche as going from I can't do this to all of a sudden, giving the speech right before they go into the big star battle to to get the Death Star plans. But, it works. It's a Star Wars movie, and I look at Star Wars movies now kind of similar to looking at James Bond films. Man, you just got to go with it. Yeah, everybody can fly a ship. You just have to figure that everybody can fly a ship just like everybody on Earth can drive a car that's old enough for the most part, and once you just set all that stuff and put it in the back seat and just enjoy the adventure. And that's exactly what I did. It was a great time. Not only that, but the theater that I went to was right outside of Orlando. It's the Winter Park Regal. It's like a Winter Park Village Regal or whatever, and I saw it in 3D, and I'm not a big 3D fan, but I gotta tell you, man, like, I get in the theater, and I realize that we're gonna be sitting in more or less recliners to watch this, and I don't think I've ever been more comfortable watching a movie, because it seriously was like watching a movie in a lazy boy. It's the crazy things that I find down here in the Orlando area, and that is definitely one of them. And honestly, I don't know if if I go out there, I'm never gonna see any other standard feature again, because I just want to sit in that theater. So it was very nice. Just nice setting to take the film in. It was very relaxing, and there was no one in the theater, which was tremendous. I went with a few friends of mine, Nick DeSico, who has been on this podcast before, and his lovely fiance, Rachel San Juan. We all sat dead center, second to last row, perfect seats. It was tremendous. We had a great time. And like I said, it was a great setting to enjoy a movie like this. I'm trying to think right now and wrap my brain around like a few of the things that, like, I guess, if I had any hang-ups with this film, it's probably maybe just like a little too much fan service. In regards to, like, I didn't think we would see C-3PO and R2-D2 in this film, and guess what? They're totally there. There were a few other things. I think that a lot of people coming off of this they're gonna go into the mo-capped versions of Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia in this film. I thought that Grand Moff Tarkin, it's kind of like two opposites for me. I thought Grand Moff Tarkin is maybe the best CG rendering of a past character from an old movie made for now. And I've said it since they started with the whole CG films and everything. I'm like, man, why can't we have like a John Wayne Western now? Like, they just make a new John Wayne Western and have John Wayne, as a CG character, and have someone voice him that sounds like John Wayne, if not take past audio and use it for him. But I thought that Grand Moff Tarkin, I don't know who voiced Grand Moff Tarkin, but it sounded just like Peter Cushing. He looked awesome, and he is in this movie a lot, which I loved. And I think that's what brought my biggest reaction, is when we saw Grand Moff at the first time we see him on the Death Star. I mean, I sat up in my seat. I was like, are you kidding me? So once I saw Tarkin, I had a feeling that we might see Leia at the very end. Which we do. It's the closing shot of the film is Princess Leia. But I thought in contrast to how good Tarkin looked, I thought Leia, they didn't do as good of a job with the CG on her. And honest to goodness, I would have much rather not even seen her like full face if they would have just shown it like in the reflection of the window, or you just saw like, her like, from behind or whatever. But regardless, man, that's like little nitpicky things. And those are pretty much like the two, like, those are like the major things that, like, I had maybe a little bit of a problem with. There's a lot of little things that are cool. The Red 5 X-Wing in the film bites it. So that way we know that the seat, in Red 5 is now open for Luke Skywalker in episode 4. I think all in all, this film, like I said, is going to kind of set the bar for not only episode 8, but now that I think about it, it's setting the bar for these next two films that are going to be outside of the main canon and kind of color some of the spaces or the blank spots that we've always had questions about. And I could sit here and I could go on and speculate. We've got Han Solo movie that's going to be coming out after Episode 8. And then there's the rumored Obi-Wan movie. But me personally, I would really like to see them do films that take place now in between episodes 5 and 6, Shadows of the Empire, and episode and from Jedi to the Force Awakens. I think that would be really cool. And obviously, people are going to go see these movies because it's Star Wars. It doesn't matter. Like, they're going to sell a lot of tickets. I found out before I walked in the theater that this film has the second most pre-sale tickets sold in cinema history, next to The Force Awakens, which kind of makes sense because this movie was highly anticipated just because it's different. It's a different Star Wars movie. We don't get the crawl at the beginning of the film. There's no need to do that. They do everything through flashbacks, setting up the story very well within like the first 20, 30 minutes of the film. They kind of jump back and forth, and I really dug that. The main bad guy in this film, I think his name is Krennic, like General Krennic. They did an excellent job of making like the audience kind of like feel bad for him. Because he's sort of shit on by Tarkin and Vader, even though he's kind of worked so hard to get this Death Star fully operational. Of course, it's Jyn Erso's dad who's the one that built it on paper or whatever first. But I just felt bad for the character. He got shit on, and then at the very end of the movie, he stared dead into the eye of the Death Star, and as the planet was blown up, the beach planet. So I like that. I like a villain that I can almost kind of feel sorry for. He was evil. Don't get me wrong, but I guess his intentions were so blinded by what the Empire wanted done that, he felt like he was doing the right thing, even though he knew he was going to be terrorizing some individuals along the way. So, all that said, folks, go out and see go out and see Rogue One. There's also a few tips of the cap to prequels. And apparently, even though I'm not as familiar with the series, there's also a few nods to the Star Wars Rebels animated show, which I need to catch up on desperately. Like I said, the fan service is there. Maybe some may think that there might have been a little too much of it, but pretty much whenever they present a weapon, a ship, an AT-AT or AT-AT, whatever. When you first see these things, you pump your fists. I pumped my fist at the end of this movie. It definitely, they do a good job of just dropping it kind of on you, and it's not really in a cheap way. A lot of people didn't like how the Millennium Falcon was dropped on us in The Force Awakens, and hey, for some people, I guess they were just kind of nitpicking. For me, I thought it was perfect because when was the last time we saw the Falcon in action, right? But anyway, definitely go out and see this movie. I'm running pretty much straight off the dome here, without any notes in front of me. I just wanted to get my thoughts out and into the internet space. Before, either I go see it again and I'm like, oh, there are some flaws to this film, because that's kind of what happens with most movies with me, that I initially like. But right now, this film was definitely one of the best that I've seen this entire year. So go out, check it out. Follow the podcast at Matty's Podcast on Twitter. We also have the Facebook page for you to like and follow as well. Also, you can follow me personally on Twitter at _Matt D. Simone. And, give me a shout. I'd love to talk about this film, comic books, or whatever. I know it's been a while since I've produced an episode talking about comic books, and that's honestly because pretty much since the summer, I've kind of sort of fallen behind on books. But I am preparing a best of list for 2016, and either by way of blog or podcast, I'm going to be getting that to you very soon. But until then, again, go out, check out Rogue One. It's a tremendous film. It's a great time. Kids are going to love it. Anybody's going to love it. It's just a good, solid adventure. And it's much needed after, a year that's been really, really weird. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, again, thanks for listening. I'm Matt D. Simone, and I promise I'll be back soon with another episode of Matty Loves Podcast.